Hello, Mike from Canavan Wealth. Welcome back to Mike Reads the Journal. This is a weekly current events that I do for clients, anybody else who wants to listen, where I talk about various news articles, how they may or may not affect the financial markets. Just going to start each week with how the S&P's done since we last talked, up about 2%. I don't think there's really any news there. I don't think the financial situation has really changed too much there. Let me jump into the articles. Now, before I touch on these articles, inevitably, I'm going to talk about politically charged things. I don't prescribe to any one party, although inevitably, you will figure out which way I lean. I kind of pride myself, and then most of my liberal friends think I'm conservative. Most of my conservative friends think I'm liberal. My hope is to just create a little bit of dialogue. But if you see something as black and white and I see it as the other color, please give me a chance to show you that at least I try and think on both sides of the issue. So we're going to jump into some politically charged things right now. The first is about what's been going on with the ozone layer, right? So this has hit the news recently. It's been going on since the 80s. Anybody over the age of 30 probably remembers that before climate change, we talked about the ozone layer. Specifically CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, that were damaging the ozone layer, and how the international community came together and effectively put pressure on industry to change the way that they operated. And that has been very successful. I think down here in the article, it says that, ozone layer levels will return to normal by 2040 for the majority of the world. It's going to be kind of 2066 for areas over the Arctic and Antarctic. The ozone layer, of course, protects us from UV radiation from the sun. So I think this is great. This was, a substantially easier problem than climate change is. If you want to understand my background with science, I was raised by a biology teacher and a physical science teacher. And I have an undergraduate degree in nuclear engineering and a master's degree in environmental engineering. I used most of that engineering when I was in the Navy. I went through nuclear propulsion school as a submariner for the Navy. And I follow science. I mean, I'm, on YouTube, I think half of my videos watched are Star Talk. And so science is a big deal to me. I'm sure you can probably parse that out, my individual thoughts on climate change. I think this is a great indicator about what can be done if the international community comes together. Of course, it's dramatically different than climate change. So my next article is about Jerome Powell and recent minutes. It's funny because every news article is covering his minutes very differently, which is typically a sign that either one, they're very politically charged, which these are not. And the second is that there's really nothing to cover, right? So they're all trying to pick something to make a big deal out of. This article, this headline, I think is fairly funny from the Wall Street Journal, because this is like saying, the sun's going to rise tomorrow. Bringing down inflation could fuel political opposition, right? Of course, there's going to be political issues around Fed policy. Now, you want my opinion on Jerome Powell? He has done what I would expect him to do, which is the best job he can do. This is an incredibly tough situation. If he can actually pull off the quote unquote soft landing that we're looking for here, and this soft landing meaning raise interest rates in such a way that inflation goes away, but we do not drive the economy into a recession, it will be a miracle. And it is, of course, not just him. There's a lot of people that work with Jerome Powell. I sometimes find fault with some of the things he says in his minutes and how the market reacts, but he's human. So I don't really fault him too much more, other than like, what are you doing? The markets are dropping because he said this thing that, he probably did not realize was going to be as charged as he did. But what I'm actually going to do is jump all the way down to the bottom of this article, because many other people covered this, which is this: without explicit congressional legislation, it would be inappropriate for us to use our monetary policy or supervisory tools to promote a greener economy or achieve other climate-based goals. Jerome Powell is pretty much saying here, it is not the Fed's job to force industry to be green through the U.S. monetary policy without legislation, right? because he takes, right, the Fed takes their direction from Congress, right? They're part of government. And I agree with this. I believe in climate change. I think it's one of the major things that we face right now, but it's not the Fed's policy in order to fix it, right? It is many other agencies, and it is the federal government's job to fix it. Because I feel like both sides of every argument are an important part of that argument, whether they're right or not. I often ask people who are, particularly politically divided, or what do you want to happen to the other side, right? If I've heard a lot of people after the Trump era say that the Republican Party should just they just want them to go away. It's like, well, what's going to happen if the Republican, they're going to be replaced by conservative groups, and those conservative groups are important to the way we operate as a society and a government, because they push back on things. The COVID was a very opinionated time, and I don't think either side got it right. But I think America came through COVID as strong as we could have, because both sides were pushing for what they felt was right. And I think we did all right because of it. Were we perfect? Absolutely not. Did anyone have the single right answer? No. I think most people think that the parties pulled directly away from each other. And I understand why they see that, but I think they're actually pulling us largely in a direction, but in also kind of a way. Call me crazy. I think it's actually a productive process. It may not seem that way at times. I am an eternal optimist, by the way. It's part of the job, and it's just the way I would prefer to go through life. I want to see the positives in things, and I don't want to be dragged down in what is, the problem of the day. So not a lot out of these Fed minutes, but I just wanted to show that, even though I believe in climate change, I also believe that there are certain organizations that, that it's not their job to deal with climate change. The Fed has a big enough job on its plate as it is. If it's now going to start effectively replacing federal legislation through monetary policy, I don't think that's their role. All right, the next one this is really an article about ChatGPT, but so this is about artificial intelligence and what's coming out. This has been all over the place. ChatGPT is a AI, artificial intelligence thing that you can ask it to do something like write a paper or a poem or all sorts of things, and it will generate shockingly good text. And this is the cusp of something major, I believe. I code as a hobby, Python and C# for people who code and understand. Largely self-taught, just kind of interest in various things. And recently I did a kind of 6-month boot camp with, technically it was through UC Berkeley, but it's through this kind of for-profit education program. And we did AI in it. It was about fintechs. It was about disruptive technologies in finance, but it was a coding, kind of class. And we did artificial intelligence for about 8 to 9 of those weeks. It was very, very good. I will tell you, this is moving at an incredible pace. And this article really talks about the concerns around whether we're going to be able to tell whether something was generated by artificial intelligence. Specifically, like, are kids going to be asking ChatGPT to write their English essay and things along those lines, which the simple truth is if your high schooler handed you an essay written by GPT, you probably could not tell the difference. Now, there are some tools online that will help people distinguish between artificial intelligence. My opinion on this is that this is chasing your tail. This is only this is generation 14 of artificial intelligence. By the end of the year, generation 15 will be out, 16 the year after. We don't know what the world is going to look like with artificial intelligence like this that can, I don't know if you've seen these image generators where you tell it what you want the image to be, and it effectively generates an image of exactly that. They are remarkable. My friends and I play with them all the time when we're online, kind of hanging out or playing games or whatnot, just to make funny memes to each other about, if we need a picture of something. And we don't know what the new world is going to look like. We don't know if kids 10 years from now are going to be writing their own English essays because of ChatGPT. And I think a lot of people, especially, it really bugs me when people will attack the educational system because they're not teaching kids now what they used to teach them 20 years ago. Well, the world's a lot different now, and they're going to live in a very different world than we do. And right, they're going to have to live with artificial intelligence just like we are. And the idea that we're not going to cautiously embrace it is, I think, a little silly, because the world is just going to change and evolve, and we're going to have to figure out how to make it work, because this stuff is going to be incredibly disruptive. This is what I feel is really going to make the next big leap in the human experience, is going to be this kind of artificial intelligence type stuff. I think in the very near future, you are not going to realize you were talking to a computer in many situations and times because of the advancement in artificial intelligence. All right. That is really it. I will see everyone next week. These are going to be recorded every Tuesday. It should be out by no later than Wednesday morning. I think we'll actually get them out a little sooner than that, but give me some time to work out the kinks. This stuff has to, there's some compliance issues and everything like that. Thanks for tuning in, and I appreciate your time, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks.